Hi there, and welcome to my blog video. My name is Justin DeChambeau, and today I'm going to be discussing some of the basics of Azure DevOps, and we're actually going to be taking a look at the DevOps environment and getting a better understanding of what features are available and what we're able to do in there. We're only going to be doing a basic run through of what everything is. We're not actually going to be doing any coding or messing around with any actual software or code, sorry. So first, let's just start off with a brief introduction to get you familiar with what Azure and DevOps actually is. So we can sort of split the name into two different terms. First, we're going to discuss Microsoft Azure, and then we'll get into what DevOps actually is. So what is Azure? Microsoft Azure is a cloud computing platform. Like if you've heard of things such as AWS, IBM, Google Cloud Services, you can probably relate their functionality to Azure because they're all cloud services. But with Azure, there are some key differences that makes it stand out from the others. After I was doing a little bit of research, I actually found out that as of August 2020, Azure DevOps is one of the top 3 leaders of cloud infrastructure and platform services. AWS is the first, and I'm pretty sure Google Cloud Services is third, and then the other ones aren't leaders, obviously, so they're not worth mentioning. But there are many different types of new services that are arising. However, these ones seem to be at the top and much further ahead of the competition. So this particular cloud computing platform is hosted by Microsoft, as I've said before, and it has data locations all over. It has locations in Australia, Brazil, Canada, Europe, India, Asia, Pacific, UK, and the United States. So your organization is always going to be automatically defaulted to your nearest geography, obviously to make things as easy and efficient as possible. However, there is always an option to migrate to different geographies just for ease of access and just conveniency. So this means there's actually quite a large scale in which this particular cloud computing infrastructure has been built upon. And one of the most convenient things is that your services can be accessed in all of these locations, which is actually revolutionizing the way that we're able to work remotely and continues to enforce ideologies of globalization and interconnectedness. So that's a little bit about Azure. Let's familiarize ourselves with DevOps. So if you look online at different sources regarding what DevOps actually is, you're going to find a variety of different answers that somewhat encapsulate the same idea. Most people may believe it's some sort of service or some type of software. However, this is not the case. It can simply be considered as a practice that ensures a holistic stance on the rapid and safe delivery of a final result. A DevOps approach ensures that the software produced is founded upon a collaborative, team-based attitude to create and improve an integrated system to deliver a particular software. So, when you're taking a DevOps approach, all the teams designated for separate tasks are actually compiled into one. So all of the development, testing, deployment, and monitoring is all done together as a team. These practices are actually quite important because they reduce the amount of time between system changes and redeployment. Depending on how this is executed, it can actually be a very lengthy process, but when you're using a DevOps approach, it can help you reduce this overall time by providing a very specific set of standards which can smooth out the deployment process. And in turn, this shortens the time to market, all the while maintaining that quality that you're looking for. So now that we've touched on Azure a little bit and DevOps, I can actually combine them and explain what Azure DevOps really is. So in the simplest and shortest terms, to my understanding, Azure DevOps is designed in a way that provides us with a myriad of tools that are integrated into a single environment. This includes planning, coding, building, testing, redeployment, releasing, operations, and even monitoring. So now let's get on to some hands-on action and take a look at creating a new project in Azure DevOps. So I have the page open, but if you're unfamiliar, you can just type in dev.azure.com. And let's just create a new project. We're going to make this private. There are some additional settings that you can get into, but I wouldn't worry about it for now. version control. You can search about it, but this is basically, if you know what Team Foundation version control is, that's basically just Microsoft version of Git. So they'll both work, they'll both be fine. So let's go ahead and create a project and just let's see what sort of things that we can do. All right, so here's the project here. We have an overview, summary, dashboards, wiki, and if you look here, the main thing that you should notice as soon as you open this is the services that are available. Now, there are 5 main services that are going to assist you with your project development, and those are boards, repos, pipelines, test plans, and artifacts. So let's just quickly take a look at pipelines. When you're thinking of a pipeline, it's kind of an interesting terminology for it, but imagine that there are issues that are arising when you're building code on a local machine. So say, for example, there are local files that cause dependencies for the application that are installed on that particular machine. So when somebody else goes and tries to open it on their machine, they won't be able to because of these dependencies. So when you're using Azure pipelines, it's actually very convenient and makes it super easy because the code projects are automatically built and tested to make them available to all of your team members. Some of these capabilities include continuous integration and continuous delivery so that code is constantly being tested and built and shipped to any destination. Now let's move on to Azure Boards. So when you think of Azure Boards, it's sort of like a project tracking software. It actually provides a lot of flexible tools that make it easy to manage the work for all of your project needs and make sure that everyone stays coordinated and on track. It's fairly simple to use, so we're just going to go ahead and discuss repos. I don't know how many of you have used GitHub, but I'm sure a lot. So you can easily sort of relate what GitHub does to what repos does. Once you have done, all of your deployment and all of your development, you need a place to push it into a source control. This is where Azure repos comes into play. It provides us with repositories that allow us to coordinate and keep track of code changes amongst our team members. Now, let's take a look at artifacts. So what is Azure Artifacts? It's actually quite interesting and quite simple at the same time. So say you have a bunch of projects with common dependencies, as I was discussing earlier with the pipelines. You can actually collect all of these dependencies and put them into a single location so that you don't have all this clutter, which makes it quite convenient. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about on this platform is test plans. Now, if you've ever used JUnit or anything like that, you can kind of get an idea of what test plans would be used for. So imagine that you've deployed something and want to see if it's functioning correctly, and you want to sort out any bugs or holes in your software code. So that's where you're going to use Azure test plans. You can actually run manual test cases, automatic test cases, and also utilize exploratory testing to verify the functionality. So overall, it's a very interesting topic. It's quite easy to use after you begin developing on it, which I'm not going to touch on any code development today, but definitely for my next blog post, you can expect to see some of this in action. So yeah, there are some other features that you might want to look at. If you are doing it with a team, obviously you just go over here, just like if you've ever used Google Drive, you can just simply put in their emails and it will automatically search for them, add members, change their privileges, all that sort of thing. So with that being said, for my first blog post, I mainly wanted to familiarize you with what Azure DevOps is and what some of these components are, how you can use them, what they do, etc. So as I said, I'm excited to actually begin developing and sharing a project with all of you in my next blog post. So until that time, I appreciate your time and I hope that you enjoyed my video and were able to learn something today.